returns to the orange warning. St. Martin-de-Linders is flooded. The Cévennes episode increased in intensity over the hills this afternoon before tapering off. At 6 p.m., the alert dropped from red to orange, but the threat remained.
La voiture avait s'encastrer dans les barres. Bam!
The weather confirmed early in the afternoon that the Cévennes episode that affected Huro, causing major flooding in the Orbe and Lurg in the morning, was not. St. Loup, heavy flooding hit the small town of St. Martin-de-Linders, 3,000 inhabitants, at around 5:30 p.m. A river, the Riu Tord, overflowed its banks, flooding the streets of the city center. In some places, the water reached more than 1 meter.
Severe storm brought winds of up to 80 miles per hour and heavy rain to the province of Castellón in Spain on Tuesday, September 12th, affecting towns of Newells, Burriana, and Alamoroso. The State Meteorological Agency issued an orange-level storm warning for the region on Tuesday. Dark clouds covered the sky over the capital of Spain, but many people still went out with plans to return home before the forecasted heavy rain in the evening. Emergency
also fall heavily around Pic Saint Loup. The prefecture has placed several cities, including Castres and Lunel, on high alert. A particularly intense Mediterranean episode hit the departments of Huro and, more marginally, Gard this Saturday, September 16. Two heavy, less mobile storm systems formed. The first is at midnight on Friday through Saturday, and the second is around noon.
Emergency services in Madrid sent messages to city residents warning of the risk of flooding and advising people to avoid using transportation in dangerous conditions. Previously, La Liga football matches had been postponed, including one on the evening of September 3rd. And some cinemas temporarily closed. Orange warnings were also issued in some areas in central and eastern Spain. This region is currently experiencing heavy rainfall and the passage of a storm. Sport matches had to be temporarily halted and transportation operations were affected in many places. Many flights had to be canceled or delayed. Railway services were also disrupted in some areas due to the flooded tracks. Residents of the town of El Alamo, southwest of Madrid, are witnessing the complete destruction of their homes, cars, and belongings due to the widespread flooding caused by heavy rain. In Elcanar, Tarragona, emergency services also advised residents to stay indoors as flooding reached up to 215 liters per square meter in the past 24 hours. Subway and high-speed rail services in the capital city of Madrid had to temporarily suspend services. The National Weather Agency reported that almost the entire territory of Spain was affected by the large storm over the past weekend. Spain has been facing an extremely dangerous situation with flooding in the capital city of Madrid and some areas in the southern part of the country. The authorities have issued a red alert, which is the highest level of warning to signal the urgent and hazardous weather conditions. The flooding has also caused many trees to fall, damaging dozens of residents' cars. Several subway lines in the capital city of Madrid had to suspend operations due to the flooding. High-speed rail lines between the capital and the Andalusia region in the southwest and the eastern coast.
Up to 548 millimeters in Roqueredon, 34 at the Info Climate weather station.
The National Railway Operator Group stated that trains had to reduce their speed on some sections. A thunderstorm swept across the island of Mallorca in Spain, bringing heavy rainfall and flash floods to some areas on August 27th. Wind speeds reached up to 120 kilometers an hour in some areas like Sierra de Alfiba and 108 kilometers an hour in La Palma, where the mooring line of a tourist boat snapped, causing it to collide with an oil tanker.
Whoa!
Passengers on a flight to Mallorca had a terrifying experience as their plane got caught in a severe storm. The pilot reported that the aircraft experienced strong wind gusts of up to 80 miles per hour as it approached the island. A horrific hailstorm struck Madrid, causing widespread havoc throughout the city and transforming the streets into a sea of large hailstones. Residents are now working to clean up the aftermath of the terrifying hailstorm.
Experienced extraordinary flows and overflows.
Sahigan, a district within the city, witnessed a particularly bizarre hailstorm with hailstones measuring approximately 2.2 centimeters in diameter. The storm originated in Caravaca and came with hail before moving into Sahigan with a similar intensity. Local authorities had to activate a yellow warning due to the adverse weather conditions.
Finally, it will be removed at 17:06. Why? Even though the episode hasn't finished yet, and we can see it clearly on the radar. The inevitable happened. The very strong storm then moved slowly and finally stopped at Pic Saint Loup. The intensity of the rainfall was very heavy. 150 to 180 millimeters of rain fell in just about 2 hours. The municipalities of Saint-Martin-de-Linders, Viles-Lefort, St. Matthew-de-Travails, Valflans, and surrounding areas were hit by heavy flooding.
The storm lasted only about 5 minutes, but the hail came down heavily, causing panic among the residents as the hailstones pounded the streets, rooftops, and vehicles, generating loud noises. Hail covered the streets throughout the Convento and Gran Via areas. In some areas, the hailstones were of similar size to marbles, and their impact raised concerns about potential damage to vehicles. Similarly, harsh weather conditions struck Zaragoza, causing a situation similar to many other areas. Streets were heavily flooded and many vehicles became stranded in the water with heavy rain and hail hitting the city.
.00. Heavy and very fast river flooding. Disaster images. Fortunately, the storm would eventually disintegrate around 7 p.m. after drenching the area northwest of Gard, ending this Mediterranean episode. However, the rain continued the following night, but lighter.
Terrifying scene unfolded with drivers trapped in their cars and people clinging to trees to avoid the rising waters in Zaragoza. In just under an hour, accumulated rainfall reached 54.2 liters per square meter in some areas of the city, leading to flooding on several main roads and other routes. Firefighters and dive teams had to intervene to rescue those trapped in vehicles. Furthermore, other parts of the city were also inundated as tree leaves clogged drainage and sewage. Heavy rain accompanied by strong winds up to 92 kilometers an hour made the situation even more severe than ever before.
Qué vergüenza, qué horror. Pobre gente. Qué angustia.
In northeastern Spain, after the hailstorm caused flooding on the narrow streets of the city, floodwaters surged through the narrow alleyways below with massive ice piles gathering on both sides of the buildings. The destructive power of hailstones, larger than tennis balls, as a fierce storm struck northern Spain. 30 people were injured after being directly impacted by hailstones with a diameter of approximately 4 inches in and around the town of Catalonia. A tragedy unfolded as streets and fields were submerged in the water due to the aftermath of the horrific flood rains. Most of this heavy rainfall was generated by Storm Dana and concentrated mainly in coastal areas throughout Spain, including Cadiz and Castellón. In 2019, an unusual weather phenomena occurred on the afternoon of August 26th in the capital city of Madrid, Spain. Made by heavy rain in a short period of time poured down the streets, sweeping away trees, vehicles, trash cans, benches, and road barriers. Videos captured the extent of the destruction in the Araganda district, showcasing the impact of the unusual natural occurrence. The intense hailstorm turned roads into ice rivers with fast-flowing water. In some areas, flooding reached significant levels. The damages could have amounted to tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some areas that are not typically or have never before experienced flash floods, hailstorms, or landslides were affected. These events serve as clear indicators of the impact of climate change on our environment and the way of life. Australia is a country in Oceania, a continent twice the size of Europe with a population of 25 million people. Eastern Australia is a picturesque place nestled in the hills. If you want to know more about this country, comment down below. And now I'm talking about the floods in Australia. Heavy rain has accelerated the growth of small creeks to an alarming rate. Floodwaters began to overflow the road and destroy everything as it passed. A man risked his life running to get his car away before it's swept away by the floods.
See if he can take his tight air out.
Oh,
He's saved
lucky.
his car.
Just.
There are not many brave people like him, and the rest are watching cars carried away by the water.
Whoa.
Is that the,
By the time the water reached the downstream area, cars were also discovered here, but they were probably not as usable as before. Flooding a car is something every owner refuses to do. The culprit causes the natural disasters is the La Nina phenomena. Under normal conditions, cold water from the east coast of the South Pacific Ocean near Chile pushes warm water westward. This warm water evaporates, adding energy to cloud formation and unusual tropical storms. This is the geographical location of the country of Turkey. Kastamonu is a lovely city hidden in amongst the forests of Anatolia. The beauty of the 12th century Byzantine castle at the foot of the hill greets you. No matter how beautiful or strong you are, to lying in the territory of the earth, you cannot avoid the floods. District. On June 27, 2022, heavy rain caused flooding in the Inabolu district of Kastamonu. The heavy rainfall caused the amount of water in the Inabolu spring to begin to overflow, creating waves in the city center and destroying 2 bridges for pedestrians and vehicles.
Abi gitme, araba gitme. Felaket.
Houses and workplaces on the ground floor of buildings were flooded, and power outages took place in the district. People are warned to move up to areas higher than the ground floor, and shops near the river asked to close at this time. Starting with Hurricane Fiona making landfall in Puerto Rico, causing flash flooding and severe flooding here on the evening of September 18th, 2016. Local officials said several landslides had occurred.
see if he can take his tight air out.
Many roads were blocked, and the bridge in the town of Utuado in central Puerto Rico was swept away by floodwaters. Ports in Puerto Rico were closed, and flights departing from the island's main airport were also canceled. Power company Luma Energy, which operates the power grid on the island of Puerto Rico, said the entire island of 3.3 million people were without power for the afternoon of September 18th. By the evening, some areas were back on power, but restoring power supply across the island will take several days. The Toyota Etios was following the bus across the flooded causeway. The video, taken by a local man from Antipur district, can be seen trying to cross the muddy road behind a bus but failing miserably when it was swept away by the strong current. Locals rescued the duo from shallow water about 100 meters away. Torrential rain had been reported in the area for 2 days prior to the incident, resulting in streams of water flooding the causeway. When Mother Nature rebelled, it was the time when humans had to cope with heavy disasters, and typically here was the flood. Many places in India are facing a state of emergency due to floods and landslides. Rain hit hundreds of villages, washing away homes and trapping residents while rescue teams raced to evacuate survivors. Thousands of homes and vehicles swam with floodwaters, causing billions of dollars in damage to the country. Mother Nature's wrath, Himachal Pradesh floods captured with cameras. Tell me where they got the courage to cross the bridge with that water in very leisurely steps while below is a raging wave that can destroy the bridge. On August 4th, 2016, major hurricanes formed and stopped at the Grand Staircase. Many major drainage systems were severely flooded. The video was shot at Buckskin, Washington, which flows into the Buckskin Gulch. Two large hordes combine to form a monster. Massive flooding has occurred in eastern Kentucky. More than 6 inches of rain fell overnight, leaving the streets submerged in water. Meteorologists say rain is expected next week, which could lead to more flooding. Governor Andy Beshear said more than 25,000 homes and businesses were without power. The number of people and property damaged is still being updated. If you'd like to express your feelings about this video or you
Perot returns to the orange warning. St. Martin-de-Linders is flooded. The Cévennes episode increased in intensity over the hills this afternoon before tapering off. At 6 p.m., the alert dropped from red to orange, but the threat remained.
Ah, la voiture avait les s'encastrer dans les barres. Bam! Ouais.
Oh non. L'autre aussi.
The weather confirmed early in the afternoon that the Cévennes episode that affected Huro, causing major flooding in the Orbe and Lurg in the morning, was not yet over. The stopping effect of the rain increased throughout the afternoon, especially localized in the northern part of the region, and the relief around Lodève, Larzac, Ganges, Aiguil, and Baie de Rio, Espinaus. Meteo France then put Huro on red alert, rightly so. According to the first readings, in the morning temperatures will fall between 200 to 350 millimeters in the affected sectors, then, with an increase in the afternoon, by up to 500 millimeters in high areas in less than 12 hours. After 5 p.m., the warning status was downgraded from red to orange rain, flooding, and high water, but vigilance remains essential. At 6 p.m., the Cévennes episode was not over, and the warnings lasted until 8 p.m. Saturday night for Huro, but also Gard and Lazier. At the foot of Pic Saint-Loup, heavy flooding hit the small town of St. Martin-de-Linders, 3,000 inhabitants, At around 5:30 p.m., a river, the Rio Tord, overflowed its banks, flooding the streets of the city center. In some places, the water reached more than 1 meter. Meteo France announced further rainfall, 100 millimeters, in the department at the foot of Aiguille, with the possibility of flooding in Haro. Gingacity is under surveillance. Rain will also fall heavily around Pic Saint-Loup. The prefecture has placed several cities, including Castries and Lunel, on high alert. A particularly intense Mediterranean episode hit the departments of Haro and, more marginally, Gard this Saturday, September 16. Two heavy, less mobile storm systems formed. The first is at midnight on Friday through Saturday, and the second is around noon. The peculiarity of this episode is that both storm systems hit the same area several hours apart, namely the southern foothills of Larzac and Haro-Savens. So rainfall fell in less than 24 hours and often in less than 12 hours, up to 548 millimeters in Roqueredon, 34, at the Info Climate Weather Station. Which caused major flooding around Lunas, Lodev, Jonsels, Tailivant, Baterio, etc., especially those affected by flash floods. The Orbe and Graveson rivers and their tributaries experienced extraordinary flows and overflows. As a result, Meteo France triggered a red rain flood alert in Haro at 14:39. Finally, it will be removed at 17:06. Why? Even though the episode hasn't finished yet, and we can see it clearly on the radar. The inevitable happened. The very strong storm then moved slowly and finally stopped at Pic Saint-Loup. The intensity of the rainfall was very heavy. 150 to 180 millimeters of rain fell in just about 2 hours. The municipalities of Saint-Martin-de-Linders, Viles-Lefort, Saint-Mathieu-de-Travails, Valflauns, and surrounding areas were hit by heavy flooding between 17.15 and 18.00. Heavy and very fast river flooding. Disaster images. Fortunately, the storm would eventually disintegrate around 7 p.m. after drenching the area northwest of Gard, ending this Mediterranean episode. However, the rain continued the following night, but lighter. During this episode, which until the last minute was difficult to predict, especially in areas where the storm was likely to occur, we ensured real-time monitoring to provide the public with the clearest possible information regarding the development of the situation. From midnight to Saturday evening, a news feed is posted on our website, supplemented by information, live photos, and videos on our social networks, and the sending of geolocation notifications to inform our of the risk of flooding in their area.